Welcome to the Phase Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Terrell Humphrey, and over the last half a decade, I've produced over 893 podcast episodes. And throughout this journey, I've been bringing you along this process so that way I can show what I'm doing, what's working, what's not working. In addition to that, talk about the business that I'm looking to grow and establish. You see, it's not the fact that it's not a plan, it's more so that the plan has to be established. This is what this video is going to be about. The plan is coming to life. And what this video is going to talk about is the business plan that I've been working on and why it's coming to life. So if this is your new first time here, make sure you got your pen, get your notebook, because today we are talking about the most important topic, because it's the topic that we're speaking about today. So first thing first, let me tell you where this topic came about, right? So yesterday, my wife and I did an expo in Tampa Bay, and it was a Power Women Expo. And when we was there, it was a live podcast going on. Throughout this live podcast, I'm literally seeing the production behind us, like seeing the behind the scenes behind it. Like literally, I'm behind the camera instead of in front of the camera. What this did for me is that it gave me proof of concept. Shout out to the Voices of Wind, and congratulations on your inaugural, I think I said that right, first podcast episode. And one thing that I really understood is that production matters. It matters because without the production, that event, that moment, that time cannot be repeated. That's when it clicked. And it was like, oh, this is the thing I was looking for. This is the moment and the understanding and the clarity that I was seeking. It wasn't the fact that I didn't understand how to do podcasting. Moreover, it was just I had to learn how to put it together. First thing that we're going to talk about is that you got to put the plan together. First point on one, you got to put the plan together. And I normally don't announce the days, but I tell you this day is a Saturday and it's 11/19. And as I'm doing this, it's literally like, man, this is mind blowing, because it's something that you have to do in business. When you're getting started with what you're doing, you have to take your idea and put it onto paper. Let me keep this up the whole entire time. My mics that I was using, I got a new adapter, but it doesn't have the mics adapter. Like it only has two USB cords, and I gotta use the mics on the computer. Nonetheless, let's get back to it. When the plan is on a piece of paper, right? You have it written out. You got your ideas. This is called ideas. When you have your ideas, when you have a concept that you would like to work on, when you have what is called an idea, concept, or let's just say a thought. And yes, they are all the same exact thing, but I tell you this, ideas comes at different times, concepts come from you executing, thoughts just come from you just daydreaming. You see, it's not the fact that the plan isn't on paper, but when the plan gets put onto paper, you're able to see what you're doing and why that matters. Shout out to Action Zone. So I actually learned about the business model canvas. I actually talked about this in a recent podcast, and it has different segments, right? And in this segment, it has like different boxes that's labeled with different things. In addition to that, as it's labeled with different things, it's something that's there that you have to put onto paper. And what that thing is your business idea. And over the last half a decade, I've been trying to figure out what that business is. And yesterday, it clicked. Like, oh, this is the business. Hold on. This is the business. This is the business because a lot of people do a lot of different things. But hold on. Let me scratch that. Because if you're trying to serve everyone, you're serving no one. Shout out to Action Zone. But when the word podcasting, you see, the podcast production is more important than just any production, because it's the lane that I'm in. Hold on. You see, the difference that was there was that I was trying to figure out what business I was in. What was the business plan? Who was my customer? What problem was I solving? I solved the problem that I was solving in real time. As I'm literally right there doing the production, going from like camera to camera, my wife and I, we were just sitting there and I'm looking and it was like, it clicked. The thing that clicked, hold on, let me fix this camera right quick. Hold on. Cause it looked like I'm not centered. There we go. Going on, bro. Unable, okay. I think I got the connection back. I gotta start over. Okay. To give some background, I was just on live, and then the internet went in and out, and then now I'm back on live. Now I got to start over. Anywho, my name is Terrell Humphrey, and welcome to the Phase Knowledge Podcast. And over the last half a decade, I produced over 893 podcast episodes. And ever since the journey, I've been bringing you along the journey. I've been explaining what's working, what's not working, and demonstrating the steps that you can potentially follow for yourself. So we're going to get started. Today's topic is going to be about the plan is coming to life. And the first one that we're going to talk about is put the plan together. So the reason why this came together is because yesterday my wife and I was doing a expo. And as we was doing the expo, what's going on, Hunter? As we was doing the expo, we was doing a podcast, like it was a live podcast. Shout out to the Voices of Wind. They produced a podcast yesterday, and as we was there to help them, guide them, and work with them, I literally saw something. I literally saw something click within myself. It was like, wait, hold on. It's not just a podcast. It's not just a conversation. It's not just an interview. It's not just a panel. This is a whole production. The production of it literally captures the moment. And when it captures the moment, it lives longer than it consists of, and it's gonna keep going in and out. Why is this internet tripping today? Like, what's going on? So the process behind your growth only comes from you understanding what you're doing. The reason why I appreciate the slogan failure is knowledge is because you can't predict your failures. You can't predict the wins, but what you can do is that you can show up every single day. When you show up every single day, you have to be okay with the failure. So when as I was talking about earlier, the plan has to be in place. When a plan is put together, you have this the little paper right here, and it has ideas, concepts, and thoughts. The different they are very similar. Yes, they are. The ideas, in fact, I want to look at the definition of them because I want to see how different are they. They're different words, but they have different meanings behind them. So I'm gonna look them up right quick. Hold on. Google ideas. I'm just gonna put simple. Ideas, simple. Ideas, simple definition. EFINITION. All right, there we go. Definition. Definition of idea is a thought, plan, opinion, or mental image formed in the mind. Okay. Now, I'm going to put concept, simple definition. Simple definition. A concept is a general mental notion, idea, or understanding of something. Okay? Concept. And then thought. Simple definition is a mental idea, concept, or opinion that is formed in the mind. You see one thing that hold on. Let me come back to the live right quick. Hold on. One thing I'm really starting to learn is that when you look up information, when you look up different words, information, resources, you start to understand more of everything that you're doing. Me looking up the words ideal, concepts, and thoughts gave me a different perspective. Why? Because they all had something to do with the mental. It's the way you think that matters. It's the way you do that matters. It's the way you understand that matters. You see, when the plan is coming to life, the plan had to be established at first. You see, I've had to pivot so many different times. I had to change my business model so many different times. I had to improve so many different times. But I tell you this, the improvement doesn't stop. I just got more. I just gained a better understanding. With that, as I start to put my ideas onto paper and I start to put the plan in a business form and learn more about a business model canvas, I start to understand that the business that I was doing was podcast production. It's not just one conversation. It's not just one interview. It's not just one panel. It's multiple. You see, when I started to see that, what I saw was that it was working. What was working was the production. Hold on. It's the key words that make a difference. It's the words that make a difference from the things that you're doing, because the things that you're doing only comes from the words that you're using. Hold on. You can't have success if you don't know the words that you're using. I looked up the word ideal, concept, and thoughts, and they all are very similar. Essentially, it's the way you think about a thing. It's the way you think about a skill. It's the way you just think mentally. Hold on. Let me get some water. No, because one thing that stops a lot of people is that you don't understand the thoughts that you have. Woo! Hold on. You see, in the business plan, you have to understand that your plan is going to change. Your plan won't stay the same, yet that means that you have to learn to adapt. You see, what I started to do, I had to learn how to adapt. What I was adapting to was the problem that I was solving. When I get calls and some people be like, hey, they're about to go do an event and they want me to come record their event, I'm like, I don't record events. I record podcast events. You see, there's a difference between just regular events and just events. I learned this yesterday. I saw this yesterday. I know this yesterday. The events matter because there are different events that people will do. And if I'm not careful, I will be stretched too thin. Right? Being stretched too thin removes me from the podcast production business because I'm producing other pieces of content. That production does nothing for me if I can't focus on one production. And so over the last half a decade, I've been fine-tuning my podcasting skills. And around podcasting, what I started to learn is that there's over 4.5 million different podcasters. And it was from Podcast Stats, if I'm not mistaken. It said over 100,000 people start a podcast every single day. So let's just look at some numbers. Hold on. Let's look at some numbers. So real quick, right? Hold on. So 4.5 million. 0.5 million. Let's say 100,000 launch a podcast every day. And if I only work with 1% of 100,000, if I only work with 1% of 100,000, let me go to the calculator. 100 divided by, hold on, times 0.01%. No, it's supposed to be, what did I say, 100,000. 100,000 times 0.01, and that's 1,000 people. Hold on. 1% of 100,000 people is 1,000 people. So I don't need to work with every 4.5 million people who want to launch their podcast or who has a podcast. What I need to do is find my niche, find my audience, find my ideal customers. And I recently discovered that, see, the podcast production is just one form, is one form of community building. And what this does is that it replaces the confusion. I was confused for the last half a decade trying to figure out the business that I was in. The production, hold on. Let's put on top, the production creates a moment. Before you have a moment, you got to understand the plan that you are working towards. I literally had to change what I was doing so many different times, and it got overwhelming. Like, man, is this going to work? Man, does this make sense? Man, am I even doing the right thing? It wasn't the fact I was doing the wrong thing. I just didn't understand the thing, the skill, the plan, the business that I was doing. You see, the podcast production, it takes a lot of work to be produced. I do it so seamlessly, so easy, so second nature. I don't think about the production of the work. I don't think of the work as the work being the work. I think of it as being a skill. Like, man, I developed this skill. This was really good, a good skill. But what I learned is that production is important. Not just any production, but podcast production. So what if I help real estate developers build their brand through podcasting? And what does that consist of? That means all you have to do is sit down and we take care of the rest. Sit down and talk and we take care of the rest. So you don't have to worry about editing. You don't have to worry about lunching. You don't have to worry about managing. You see, it removes the stress that podcast production creates. As I started to see the difference, hold on. I'm sitting here. This is my wife right here. Let's say this is her hair right there. That me right here. Me. Wife. As my wife was helping me yesterday, we was at a table, a little round little table, and it had a little box on there, right? It had a little box on there. And as we're sitting there, we're literally controlling the production. The production, not just any production, the podcast production. You see, when I found the lane that I wanted to be in, I was like, I need to stay in this lane. Hold on. Let me come back to it. I need to stay in this lane because if I get efficient in this lane, I will be able to have a business in this lane. You see, to put the plan onto paper, you have to understand that your plan won't come to life unless you take the action to make your plan a reality. Oh, hold on. So you're telling me that when you invest into yourself, when you invest into your knowledge, when you invest into your equipment, your production starts to change. Your production starts to look different. Your production brings in more people. Oh, so you're telling me podcast production takes a lot more work than a lot of people perceive it as. Hold on. What's going on, Kevin? I appreciate you for joining in. Hold on. What's going on, Tweety? I don't know who just came in, or Josh. But I'll tell you this. The challenge came from really understanding that the production has to be produced. The production has to be the focus. The production has to be simple. You see, it might seem simple, but it has to be simple. Oh, hold on. It might seem simple, but it creates so much value. You see, the value that I was creating, I didn't know that it was being produced. When I put the video together, the recap together, I'm literally looking at the story that's there. And as I look at it, I say, "Ooh, this is different." You see, it's different because I'm not second guessing myself. It's different because I found the business plan to work on. It's different because now I have more clarity. Hold on. You see, that clarity came from 5 years of podcasting. That clarity came from 893 podcast episodes. That clarity came from me going to school for business management. That clarity came from going to entrepreneurship programs. That clarity came from educating myself. That clarity came from listening to podcasts. That clarity came from reading books. You see, there's so much information that's out there. But until I went to go seek it, the production of the podcast was confusing. Oh, hold on. I tell you this. You see, my arms starting to sweat because it's getting intense. The business plan is coming to life because the business plan had to be redeveloped. The business plan had to be reestablished. The business plan had to be the focus. You see, when it's the focus, I start to see things differently. Hold on. Let me come back to it. Let me come back to the screen right quick. Hold on. Let me know in the comments where y'all chiming in from. Listen. Hold on. You see, the production is like this, okay? You got a screen. You got this. You got, let's say, cam 1, cam 2, cam 3, cam 4. I volunteered at this church. It was called the Crossing Church. When I volunteered at this church, I volunteered for the media department. I didn't just volunteer for any and every ministry. I volunteered for a specific ministry, ministry, and that was media. Media is more than a camera. Media is more than lights. Media is more than just a laptop. Media lives forever. So you're telling me if I get into media, the media can be the production of things. And so when I got there, hold on. Let me come back to the screen right quick. Hold on. When I was able to volunteer, they taught me how to use the equipment. The equipment is what creates the production. In addition to that, the equipment is what makes the production or makes the speaking engagement, the podcast, more enjoyable. Excuse me. More enjoyable. My wife kept using this terminology yesterday. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, why you keep saying that? She was like, on this camera, we need to pan out, right? Pan out means zoom out. When she said that, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, how you know that? Because I learned that when I was volunteering at the Crossing Church, child to them. When I saw that, I said, ooh, that's the production of it. You see, the production is what people don't pay attention to. Every time as I was growing up, I literally pay attention to cameras. Like, I don't know why every time I go to a different event, different place, whatever case is, I pay attention to the camera. Like, if I see lights, if I see camera, I'm going to go perform. When I was playing high school football, they had me on the news. They had me on camera. They had me communicating. And when I started to do the same thing, it was like, hold on. How is this video produced? I didn't know it was called producing that time. It was called, how is it made? How am I on the news? I literally remember watching news one day. I was watching with my mama and my two brothers, and it was a highlight going on. I was like, Vic, turn it up. I was like, Mama, can you turn it up? And as she turned it up, I came on the screen and started talking. When I started to talk, I was like, hold on, that's different because I'm in the living room watching myself on TV. Hold on. Okay, let's fast forward to today. I'm watching myself on YouTube. I'm watching myself on TikTok Live. I'm watching myself on Instagram Live. You see, the production helps you see yourself or helps you see what's going on. And I started to read and understand everything that I was doing. And it gave me the confidence that I was doing something right. Although I haven't accomplished my goal of making $100,000 in 90 days or having a podcast business in 90 days, the clarity that came from me of trying to do this challenge for 90 different days gave me the confidence to understand that it will eventually start to make sense. When it makes sense, you have to adjust your plan. That's the next point I'm going to hit on. That's the next point I want to hit on. Media, point number 2, adjust your plan. And when you adjust your plan, just know that everything, and I say everything, and I mean everything is not going to work. You see, I had to come to terms. I had to come to like reality. Like, man, why am I not able to grow business yet? Why? Hold on. Why am I not able to make an impact yet? Why am I not able to put myself out there more? You see, it's not the fact that I wasn't making an impact. Moreover, it was more so that I had to wait to understand what I was doing. You see, podcast production is more than just record. Podcast production is a process. Podcast production is a setup. Podcast production is the equipment. So you're telling me when you have the production of your podcast, when you have the equipment of your podcast, when you have the skills of your podcast, everything starts to come together. I remember I thought I was gonna do an event, and I went and talked to these people, and they called back, and we used to communicate via email. I didn't know anything about AR and VR, and so That was like, AR is gonna cost X amount of money. Da, da, da. I'm like, what is AR? That was like audio recording. I said, for real? That was like, yeah. I said, oh, I didn't even imagine that. I said, what is VR? I'm assuming it's video recording, right? That was like, yeah. Good. Okay. They was going to charge me, if I'm not mistaken, like $40K. $40K for the audio visual. $40K. Hold on. They was going to charge me. Hold on. What's it, $40K? 15, let's say 15 to however much, $40K. And I'm blown away. I'm like, what you mean? All you need is speakers and all this different stuff. Why is it that much? Oh. Because if you don't have audio and visual, you just have an in-person event. You just have an event where it's going to be hard for others to be entertained with. That blew my mind. Because I got to thinking about it yesterday. I was like, why is this important? Why is the production behind the camera important? It's important. What I've learned over the last half a decade, what I saw yesterday, it's important because if it's not properly set up, everything can go wrong. Yesterday when I was there and we put the cameras up, the cameras, like, it was going good. It was going great, going phenomenal. Tell me why I get a notification to say this. Hold on. Tell me why I get a notification to say this. Low battery. Low battery? What? I thought I charged it. When I tell you, I was like stressing. Oh man, I was stressing because I didn't want the camera to die. And guess what? The camera died. In fact, we had two cameras, so instead of switching it from camera to camera, we had one camera. Why is production important? It's important because it captures the moment. It documents the moment. It celebrates the moment. It can be used for future references. Before I got on this live today, I went on Instagram and I saw a video of an announcement that's going on for another event back in my hometown, Little Rock, Arkansas. The footage that they had was from the footage that they used a while ago or last year. That's the production side of it. You just don't get the footage without pressing record. You just don't get the footage without switching cameras. And whenever my wife and I go to different churches, I look at the cameras. I'm looking at the cameras. Why they move, where they're going, why they doing particular things. Let me come into the camera so I can show you. Hold on. Let's just say you got 4 cameras. Hold on. You got 4 cameras. You got camera right here, camera 1. You got it right here. Hold on. That's person. Hold on. I gotta erase that. Hold on. All right. Camera 1. Right here you got camera 2. Right here you got camera 3. Right here you got camera 4. Okay. These are productions, right? The camera create the production. OT, what's going on, man? So you got 4 cameras in the church. Whenever we go to different places, it doesn't matter. Quite honestly, it doesn't matter where I'm at. I'm always looking at cameras. One camera, let's just say, let me number 1, 2, 3, 4. One camera can be stationed. Camera number 2 can be like a mobile camera. Like it's shooting, like it's directed. Or it's moving. Let's just say it's moving. Camera number 3 is station. Camera number 4 is up higher. Up high. Okay. The more cameras, love, brother, this Orlando? It's Orlando, right? Orlando. I think so. I'm not for sure. Anywho, so you got 4 cameras, right? Appreciate y'all for joining in. What's going on? I think you said Dame. You got 4 cameras. So with the cameras, you have different things people are seeing, right? I got 3 lights right here. If I turn off one light, my backlight shuts out, right? Hold on. Let me come back. Let me come back to the screen. All right, let me start that example over. All right, cool. I got 3 lights. 1, 2, 3. If I shut off one light, this light behind me turns off. Now in the background, it's dark, right? If I turn this light on, right, and turn this one on, the left side of my face is dark, okay? If I turn this light on and this light off, I got the backlight that's on. I got this light that shows this side, but on this side, it's a little dark. And the reason why it's dark, because the light's not on. And so when I turn it on, you can literally see there's a balance with the lights. You see, the only difference with the lights is that it's lights. The difference between lights and cameras is that it switches the angles of the lights. It switches the angles of the cameras. And so when they all are off, you don't have a production. But when they all are on, your production is been made. Oh no, your podcast is being produced. And I'll tell you this, when I start to see the difference of what I was trying to figure out, I figured out and I understood that was important. Lando, appreciate it, man. Appreciate you for joining in, bro. That's important. It's important because if the small details are not captured, I literally learned, when I saw my face right there, I was like, dang, I learned that a while ago. Like, and it made sense of why I had 3 lights. Because one side is literally dark. I watched it on YouTube or somebody explained it and it was like, okay, that make a lot of sense. It makes sense. Because when you have a podcast, the small details matter. It's not the fact that what you're doing is not important. It's just that for your podcast to be produced effectively, it has to have different angles. When I started with one angle. As I've grown, I've increased the angles. I've increased the knowledge. I've increased the equipment. I've increased the production. I'll tell you this right quick. The angles. Hold on. I'm gonna put it right underneath this. The angles matter. I remember I was taking a picture for my wife. And one day she got upset with me. Or not one day. She got upset with me when I was taking the picture for her. And she was like, you don't understand the angles. And I'm like, what you mean about the angles? Like, you literally are in the camera. Like, I literally just took a picture of you. Look. She looked at the photo and she said, but you didn't get my shoes. And when she said that, I'm like, your shoes ain't even that important. But the shoes complements the outfit. So when you have the small things and you pay attention to it, the camera angles, the lights, the production, the sound, that's what makes the podcast. And I used to downplay it a lot because I'm like, I know what I'm doing. Like I don't second guess what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. But then when I try to make a business behind it, I'll doubt what I already know. You see, the podcast production focuses on the sound. See right here, the sound is important. Because if the sound wasn't captured, you'll be hearing the background noise. You'll be hearing echo. You'll be hearing not a crispy voice. If you're not on the podcast right now. But what this does is that it helps your production gets better. I was on this podcast, and when I was on this podcast, it gave me like a different concept of it. It was like this was like next level, over above next level, whatever that level is. They had a stand that came up and dropped back down, and this was the mic. I'm looking at it, I'm like, bro, what is that? He said, man, it's a microphone. I said, why is it up there? He said, because we want to capture the audio. I said, but don't we have microphones right here? He said, yeah. He said, the more microphones you have, the better the audio. I said, what? He said, when you focus on your audio, the better the conversation comes. And it just blew my mind because it seems so simple. On the contrary, it's so important. The podcast production has to be paid attention to with the small details. Hold on. So, all right, so the first 2 points that we just went over were point number 1, put the plan together. Point number 2, adjust your plan. Point number 3, understand, or not even understand, but learn from others. I was about to go out and do speaking engagements and talk to different places, different events, and so on and so forth. As I started to do that, it became overwhelming because every time I got in front of people, they didn't understand what I did. Excuse me. They didn't understand my business. In fact, I didn't even understand it. But then, as I continue to do it more often, I'm looking at how people react, how they communicate, how they respond. Did it make sense? Did it not make sense? I had to adjust so many different times. Recently, within the last couple of weeks, I adjusted again. But then this time when I said we are a podcast production company and we help real estate developers build their brand through podcasting. That was like, oh, I know so-and-so. You should be so, oh, snaps. That clarity came from the half a decade. That clarity came from the 90-day challenge, those 6 90-day challenges. That confidence came from understanding the problem that I was solving. As I start to do that, as I start to communicate, as I start to listen to others, I'm listening for feedback. Or you say learn from others, but in reality, you're listening for feedback. With that feedback, you position yourself as a brand. Not even as a brand, but as a company who solves one problem. And so with this, it's so many different thoughts that goes into my mind. Like, man, is this gonna work? I watched the recap from yesterday and literally understood that's what I was looking for. That was the business I was looking for. The podcast production is not just pressing recording. You literally have to set things up, put things in place, double check, make sure everything's good. Repeat, change it. There's a whole production of it. And in fact, I want to look up the word production. Hold on. Production. I looked it up the other day, but it gave me something else. Podcast production, simple definition. And it is podcast production is the complete process of creating a podcast, covering everything from initial idea and planning to recording, editing, and publishing the final audio. I tell you this, it wasn't easy to get here, but I'm glad I'm here because now I understand. I've had to fail so many different times. And now that I have the knowledge, I can apply the information that I've received. Failure is knowledge because you only grow when you fail. Failure is knowledge because you only learn when you go try. Failure is knowledge because you have to be willing to be okay with being embarrassed. I've learned that the production of the podcast is more than just a conversation. I got a book right here. I'm actually, now that I understand what I'm doing, I'm actually about to read this book. I got 2 books. One is tax deductions and tax breaks. I got to read that one too. Nonetheless, there's a book and it say Podcasting for Dummies. If it was easy, look how thick the book is. Hold on. Look how thick that is. You know what I mean? Like if you listen to this, you ain't gonna be able to see the page, but I can tell you the total pages that's in this. 1 second. Hold on. 1 second. It says the total number, 349 pages. So if I read this, since I'm already doing podcasting, and I understand podcasting, and I understand the production of it, and my company is podcast production because we help real estate developers build their brand through podcasting, I will be able to have a business who help real estate developers build their brand through podcasting, because we just had one of our first live events that we partnered with to help them launch their podcast for Voices of Win. You see, there's a process that you have to go through before you understand the process that you are experiencing. That process that you're going through, it's failure after 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 failure. Because this failure is going to teach you something that you wasn't prepared for. And when it teaches you something that you wasn't prepared for, you have the knowledge to apply. So just to recap everything that we talked about today, because this was one of the best ones that I've ever done because of the clarity. You see, the name of the podcast episode was The Plan is Coming to Life. And the thing that we talked about right after that is the adjust your plan. You have to be okay with adjusting your plan. Last thing that we talked about is learning from others. When you learn from others, you understand that the podcast that you are producing, the podcast that you are creating, only consists of you solving a problem consistently. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're in politics. I was like, the only thing is, we don't talk about politics. We talk about your journey. We don't talk about one side or the other. We talk about your journey. We talk about your failure. We talk about your knowledge and how you turn setbacks into success. That's what we focus on. But then I have to learn how to have what goes with the podcast, right? I can't say yes to everybody. And that's fine. I'm okay with saying no. In addition to that, as I'm starting to help real estate developers build their brand through podcasting, I understand the steps that it take. I understand the process that I need to implement. I understand the blueprint that I need to follow, so that way their podcast becomes well produced. And then that's what's gonna help them grow. Oh man, that was good. So if you're on your journey, you think you're doing something wrong because you don't see the results as fast as anybody else, you're doing the right thing. You're figuring it out. And through this channel with Failures Knowledge Podcast, Failures Knowledge Channel, we literally are talking about everything that I'm doing, what's working for me, what's not working for me, and steps that you can start implementing for yourself. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, because this content is only going to get better. The production is only going to grow. In addition to that, follow us so that way you can be updated with all new information, videos that's going to be posted in the future. Lastly, don't be afraid to fail, because failure is knowledge, and you never know what that failure is going to teach you. Oh, I messed it up. Hold on. I'm gonna do it again. Lastly, don't be afraid to fail, because failure is knowledge, and you never know what that failure is going to teach you. I appreciate y'all. See y'all in the next one. That was good.